Welcome back to the channel and thanks for being here. As you can tell, I'm outside today because after watching my video back with Souren, I'm feeling a little bit of gratitude for where I live and where I come from, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to breathe a breath of fresh air. Souren owns his own company where he practices cybersecurity, for which he has a certificate from Harvard University for. He learned English and learned to code while practicing on a cell phone of all places while stealing Wi-Fi from his neighbor. Now, what I'm not telling you is that neighbor was in Aleppo. Souren is a Syrian refugee who moved to Canada about 5 years ago with his family at the age of 16. With very little English known to him, he's come a long way. Perfect English, much better than my Arabic for sure. So if you're not feeling grateful at this point in time, I hope that by the end of this video, you're very thankful for just having the opportunity to be born in a first world country, most likely, and that you're grateful for what you have and where you woke up and the meal that you probably just ate that filled your belly. So please sit back and enjoy my conversation with Souren Khetcho.
Tell me how you got here and why was Canada chosen?
Well, before the decision of why coming to Canada, actually my aunt has been a Canadian citizen for about 25 years and she has been in Canada. That was a major influence of why Canada over another country. So I moved out of Syria in 2014. I was only 15 then. And I arrived to Lebanon on August of 2014. Sorry, July of 2014. And so we had quite of a difficult, rough transition, I would say, from Syria to Lebanon. It took us about like 18 hours of road trip, if you were to call it a road trip. That was supposed to be only 5 hours. Before the war, it was only like 3 to 5 hours, but it was 18 hours because we had to stop at about 25 military points, and we had to go through different transitions, different roads, so we avoid battles. It was the worst timing because that was during the war, full on. There was a period of time where even Aleppo. So I'm originally from Aleppo, the most destructed city in Syria.
Yeah.
Sadly, it a very historical place, but I had to move out because it was just completely unbearable to stay there. And we were refugees inside the country, so we didn't have access to our home inside our country. So like we were on continuously like on foot between my grandparents from both of my parents' sides, and so it wasn't stable, and it became more and more difficult, especially when it came to schooling. I was very lucky to actually attend school during that time, attend high school, but it was unbearable. So we decided that we have to do something. At least we have to try and move out. So we moved out to Lebanon. And there we got into God, it was a small room. It was a very small room. We were living like we were 11 people with our relatives, very like one single room, and it's just one room. And we stayed there for 2 weeks until we were able to find our own place in Lebanon. And that's when we got a little bit lucky because we found a good place at a good price. Also, then you have to also consider what's your burn rate, if you were to call it, for how long can you sustain to stay in a country that's not yours, and what you need to calculate to assess whether this move was successful or not. So, of course, my dad had a great influence on this in terms of deciding what to do. So we decided to stay. My dad originally was a pediatrician back in Syria. He had even difficult time finding work in Lebanon just because he was Syrian. We have to also address that there is like I don't know, it's not racism because in Middle East, they are all the same race, but there was discrimination against Syrians in Lebanon just because they are Syrians. I actually was very lucky to get into a high school there. Just because I was Syrian, I wasn't getting accepted. And then I got accepted, but then there was the discrimination within high school. So I decided, you know what? I'm already not doing very well. This is overwhelming. And the educational system in Lebanon is in English, whereas in Syria, it was in Arabic. So it was completely different landscape that I'm not familiar with. And I'm not succeeding. And I know that. I don't want to lie to myself. So I said, you know, I want to focus on something that I really enjoy, and I really like, which I think I know its outcome if I do it very well. And by that, I chose to learn cybersecurity and information security, as well as network security. I tried to educate myself, and then I got into programming and I started building tools. So that was the majority of my time in Lebanon. I was trying to educate myself. Initially, I had like just a Samsung phone that I got from Syria, but I didn't have an internet connectivity there because I was in a remote area in Lebanon. So we got from the neighbor's house that was quite far, a very weak internet connection that I used to like spend 8 hours, 10 hours just on the window trying to scroll through things and trying to learn, and just wait on videos until like I used to even try to download YouTube videos just so I don't have to wait until it loads. Right now, just open YouTube and you can watch the video. But then for me, I had to like make sure which ones I want to download so I don't waste time. And so I download the ones that I think that are going to provide me value. And then I watch them later while I try to scroll and search for other things and try to learn. And then I reached a point where I noticed like, I can't go beyond this if I don't have a PC and equipment, something that I can test my skills that I'm acquiring over time. So with my dad's help, I was able to buy a laptop, and I still have it, and I still use it until today. And I used it to at least test myself, and I was pleased with the results that I got. Is I was able to do a lot. I was able to set up my own. I was 16 then. I was able to set up my own like internal lab for penetration testing, and I was trying to do programming, and I was very active.
Okay, so I don't mean to cut you off, but I've already just got so many questions that I don't want to forget any, and I'd love to unpack that a little bit further. So, when you left Syria and went to Lebanon, you mentioned that the school system, the language was different. So you came from an Arabic school system into an English school system. Did you speak English at all, or was that you're just thrown into the mix, thrown into the deep end, and you had to learn?
Yeah. I even didn't speak English, hardly any English when I arrived to Canada. So you can imagine what it was like. Yeah. So I really picked up the language when I came here. I spoke hardly anything. Wow. And I was able, like even my spelling, I had to do ESL here. So
yeah. Okay. So from that, you were launched into a schooling system that you didn't speak the language. And of course, tech languages are not English, right? It's basically you're learning another language, whether it's English, Arabic, Japanese, whatever it might be. It's another language, right? It's got a syntax, it's got a methodology to it. So it seemed something about your learning in high school you determined fairly early on. It seems that learning computer languages was going to be a better route for you. Is that sort of a fair assessment?
Yes, yes. Speaking of this topic, it was, in a way, the lack of performance in high school forced me to try to find another path of focus. That's something that I feel good about doing, and and my choice ended up being right. That's really how it ended up. If I liked something else, I might not have chosen computer programming or cybersecurity. But that's what happened. You're right.
Okay, fair enough. And I'm going to assure you that the overwhelming majority of the people that are going to watch this have absolutely no idea just exactly what you went through. So as best you can, exactly what you remember and what it was like living in Syria. And obviously you went through quite the turmoil to get out of Syria just to get into Lebanon. So it obviously had to have been worth it, right? And just explain that to people, because I think most people, including myself, obviously have never been in that situation and just won't understand it. So.
Yeah, no, I'm completely comfortable speaking about this topic because it's part of what contributed to who I am right now. So war started 2000, revolution started 2011, and full-out war started months into the revolution, but it wasn't in Aleppo until late of maybe 2011, 2012, beginning of 2012. And so our place that we lived in was on the battle line between the opposition and the government. We were still on the government side in a geolocation perspective, but that's when we were in the area that they used to call it, or the translation in Arabic is like the bombing range, is this range where both sides frequently attack each other compared to outside of the range. So it was very, very difficult. At least like every night we would think, okay, is this the night that ISIS is going to invade our neighborhood? Because like we can hear them. That's how close we were. We can hear what's happening on the other side. And we were thinking, well, we were a minority there. We were a Christian minority there. And so, and I'll tell you this, like the people that were, at least that was my experience, we weren't liked by any party. Like we were crushed. At least my experience is I got a lot of heat from the government, as well as we will get a lot of heat because it was becoming radicalized during that period. We will get a lot of heat from the opposition if they invaded our neighborhood because we were a Christian minority. We were accounted on the government side just by default, regardless of your opinion. My opinions were against the government, against the regime. And so, but then you can't, of course, say that publicly because it will be gone, regardless of your age. So in terms of experience, there was no water. We had to carry water to our place. We had to go to a specific place where it was ground level and we had access to water, but just because it's ground level. If you live in a building, which most of the land, like the city of Aleppo was buildings in apartment fashion, they don't have water beyond level 2 or beyond level 1. So it depends on where you are as well. If you are on a well maintained area, by the government, then you will have more access to water. But this belt of fire belt, if you were to
Mhm.
call it, it was super neglected because the government doesn't know if they will have access to this area anymore,
Yeah.
and the infrastructure is destroyed because of the bombing. So you have lack because of two reasons. So we had very hard time actually getting water, which is the most essential thing. We completely forgot about electricity. We didn't have any electricity. I remember there was a transitioning year in Syria, that's the 9th grade, that you had to, if you can't pass it, you can't proceed to get your grade 12, or you can't really proceed and get onto university. So you have to pass this with a good grade. And I studied that entirely on candles. So that entire year,
Oh wow.
yeah,
Okay.
and I got uh, not to brag, but I got like uh,
Go ahead
285
and
out of
brag.
310. I got about
285 out
I
of
got
310. Okay.
285 out of 310. And you have to consider that you have 12 uh, materials to study. You have history,
Okay.
geography,
Hmm.
politics, propaganda, if you were to call it,
Okay.
government propaganda, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology,
Okay.
religion, propaganda number two, and yeah, and other sorts of material of subjects that you need to study for this. So that was in terms of electricity and water. Those, if you were there, they didn't become utilities that you have to have access to at all times. They are just
Mm-hmm.
privileges.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the war, these became privileges for people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and obviously no internet.
Mm-hmm.
That's way off the charts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um, yeah, we didn't have access to heating as well. People there became so poor and so and lack access to basic utilities and, like, for example, heating during the winter,
Mm-hmm.
that they started like burning their clothes and burning garbage that they find on the streets.
Mm.
And my experience is far better than so many people there in Syria that have struggled. Like, I consider what I had there uh, is a very good state
Mm.
to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what happened, and we had no access to heating. Uh, like, I even remember, because of the cold and because of, like, we used to like wrap ourselves with as much clothes and as much blankets as we can find,
Mm-hmm.
and the walls start to uh, like they have moist on them
Mm-hmm.
because it's so cold inside, and because of your breathing, you start seeing moist on the walls. So
Mm.
that was the state that we used to live in, and we
Mm.
and and of course everything was becoming more expensive, less accessible, less food. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the life there, and it was a living hell.
You studied by candlelight. Where I'm curious, where did you get the candles?
Candles were accessible,
Okay.
and to be specific, it's not a candle. Um, it's something else that I don't know what they call it
Like
in
an oil
English.
lamp?
It's an oil lamp. Yes,
Okay.
it was an oil lamp that
Okay.
um, it was very good.
Okay.
I enjoyed looking at it. I enjoyed
Yeah.
studying with it.
Okay.
You have to make things there. If you can't find joy, you will be a very pessimistic, sad person. A lot of people
Mm.
there are pessimistic about the situation. They are
Mm.
drained. They were, I, when I was there, and I realized this as at a very young age, is people tend to change very quickly, and you start seeing people's true nature as soon as an instability happens. As soon as you
Mm.
shake the ground under the as soon as you disrupt the equilibrium, you will start seeing what people are truly are in nature. And I remember some people were nice, and then they turn out to be vicious, and truly vicious. Like, they were enrolled and they used to go and do and participate in the war, and they were people who thought that they're not good, but they turned out to be truly helping, and they were trying to, at least in a way, support their community. So you start to see the true nature of people, and a lot of people became very sad very quickly, and most of the people there were very pessimistic. So you have to find joy in the very little things that you have access to keep your sanity, because if you can't, you will go insane in situations like that. You have to keep your sanity in one way or another.
I find it very inspirational that you
Thanks.
speak that you speak that way about a situation that the majority of Canadians, thankfully, will never experience, obviously, right? I mean, it's obviously terrible that anybody experiences it, but that you put it extremely well when you said people get pessimistic when their equilibrium is disrupted. And I think that has been proven with the situation we've gone through with COVID. People in a first world country with access to clean water, with access to heat and healthcare and infrastructure, and they're not going to sleep listening to bombs and wondering if they're going to wake up to rubble in the street the next morning, or people burning their clothes just to stay warm. And they're upset, right? And it's a real situation. I don't want to say people aren't suffering, but they are suffering differently, and they are only suffering, quote unquote, suffering because, as you put it, their equilibrium and what they've come to know as the norm has been disrupted. And I think that's a very astute observation. And I find it very inspirational that you were still able to find joy and optimism in a situation when, from the outside looking in, there's nothing to be happy about there, right? Or very little. Were you hungry? How did your typical food intake change from day to day, and what would a typical meal look like for you? Just for example, say at dinner, if there was such a thing as multiple meals per day.
My dad was a superhero. I'll say that.
Okay.
He tried his best, and he goes beyond, above and beyond, of course, to try to provide to his family. And thankfully, no, I don't ever recall going hungry a night.
Okay.
And that was something that was at least what you can have during a war that you can be thankful for. And that's why I initially said that my situation was considered very good in the war. A lot of people were hungry, and the thing that you can't really blame on people, or at least their financial situation, is their actual access to food. It was the entire economical infrastructure of Syria was collapsing during that time, and you had, so my dad knew what he needs to be doing in regards to our personal finances, in regards to converting from Syrian pound to US dollars. That was the first thing that my dad did when he first noticed the sign of disruption, and that's what also helped us. That initial decision of at least sustaining the value of the money through converting it into a different currency helped us in the future to sustain our, in some fashion, to sustain our financial situation and be able to have access to items that became very expensive quickly.
Mhm.
And that one of the most crucial items was food.
I don't want to just focus on one thing, because it sounds like from that, I guess, from the ashes rise the phoenix type of thing. I read your story, and you come from that background, and I just tried to lay that foundation for viewers, because from that, you you leave Syria, you go to Lebanon, don't speak the language, teach yourself coding and cybersecurity, and then immigrate to Canada. And do I understand this correctly, that you have a cybersecurity certification from where?
From Harvard.
It is from Harvard. Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you describe that in 30 seconds or less, for somebody who knows nothing about the business? How would you explain cybersecurity?
Sure. If cybersecurity has to have two sides, you have the offensive and the defensive side. If you are working within a company and you have your corporate level cybersecurity manager position, you have to work on the defensive aspect. So you have to work on mitigating your loss of infrastructure, tech infrastructure. You have to mitigate or at least plan what can come up as a litigation risk against your company. Your entire strategy should be around mitigating the cyber attack.
Mhm.
You can't eliminate it completely. On the offensive side, you are part of a red team that's supposed to find the vulnerabilities, or at least pathways to access an organization, which can enable this organization to patch these holes within their system, not technologically only, but also through educating their staff on good practices. So cybersecurity has two sides all the time, and you have to be encompassed on both sides to understand the full spectrum. Otherwise, if you only focus on one side, you will be missing the half of the other story.
It would seem to me that you don't just have computer background, coding background, technical know-how. It sounds to me like you have an entrepreneurial brain, or a business-minded train of thought or way of
Thanks.
thinking. Where did you get that? Where did you learn that? Did you learn it, or is it just your innate nature?
I really do. I feel like I had that in me somehow.
Okay.
I'll be honest with, like, when I was in Lebanon and I was doing stuff, I always joke with my cousins, and I told them, I will seriously go to Canada and start like a smart home company. They would say, why smart home? I said, like, imagine that there are many things at your home that you do on a daily basis that are easily automated if someone actually focused on automating. And they are done for you. Like, imagine, okay, you arrive home, you turn on your TV, for example. That one single interaction, So imagine if you were able to, you can predict that. Like, if you had a human tracking another human every single time they do something and they time it, they know, they have a log. Okay, 5:30 arrived, turn on TV. A second thing, do another thing. So you can. But what's more unique about a human is the observation that a human can have, as well as the ability to find correlations and relations within the tasks and tell which one weigh each of them based on importance. Like, turning on TV is not as important, for example, as maybe morning coffee.
Okay.
So there are certain things that you can also consider in terms of weighing, in terms of importance. So I thought, well, if that's really the case, then maybe you can have a model where you have maybe a computer that's running your entire house, that's able to predict or at least adapt with your way of life.
Mm.
And be able to make it easier.
So why did you not do home automation?
Well, first of all, it's quite capital intensive.
Okay.
And I didn't have the technical knowledge or background to do it.
Okay.
But I was conceptualizing what it should do or what it should look like.
Yeah.
And so far, like here's the thing, I was looking in terms of doing it, but I also wanted to see if right now I realize that you have to also see if it does have a valid market or not. Otherwise, you're just building a product that no one wants.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the core of what capitalism comes down to, is if you build something and someone wants to buy it, they have the option to buy it from you, and that validates every time someone buys from you, that validates that you took the right decision of offering it. So, and if someone doesn't buy from you, then that was a bad decision of offering it. That means it doesn't have a market, or you might be missing something. So that's what it came down to. Yeah, and I didn't pursue it because I had other focuses. I really didn't have any clue on what the business, I would say, grounds are here in Canada or in Vancouver specifically.
Okay. I very much appreciate you coming on and doing this this chat with me. I'm just going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. They don't require a ton of thought, and then we'll wrap up and go from there. So, what was your worst job ever?
I have to be thankful that I got a job in Lebanon, but it wasn't a consistent job. I just got a job because of the help of a friend. And what I do is just stand and watch people.
Can you elaborate on that?
So they had a trail in Lebanon. There was a church that had a farm, and they used to sell farm products in a store outside the church, but there was also a pathway to a lake. So they had multiple security observation points, they used to call them, that someone just has to stand there and look for any unsuspicious activity.
Okay.
And that was like 12 hours.
Okay, and you're just watching people going by. Okay.
Yeah, you just watch people go by, and nobody really has any interaction with you. They don't really ask you or engage with you. There's nothing that you would do, and it's not that you can do anything on you that you want on your shift. No, you can't do anything as well. That's the thing, is like you can't do anything else. So you have to be there and you have to watch. And that was really boring.
So I see the bookshelf behind you. What podcast or book would you recommend the most?
There's a good book, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. You probably heard of it. It's a really good book. There's another book, 48 Laws of Power, which I think it's a good perception of how things might work out to be in different scenarios. And yeah, that's actually that's a pretty good book. Those are probably the two that I would recommend to read initially, just to have a perspective on what really can happen and what people have done in the past. Like, for example, 48 Laws of Power, they use a lot of references from history. And so it's actually an interesting take when you put all of these in one book.
Other young entrepreneurs, let's say 20-year-old entrepreneurs such as yourself, what would be the advice you would give them?
You must be the biggest criticizer of your product. If you can't be the biggest criticizer of your product, you're just blinding yourself and making the sky blue and no clouds, nothing. So you have to be like brutally honest about your product. Otherwise, you're just going to waste time. So yeah, don't waste time. stay focused on the market that you're trying to target, and know your market. Like, you have to know exactly who you are selling to, what selling strategy actually works with them, what you need to talk with, and what language they speak. Do they speak technology? Do they speak cost? What language do they speak? Because that might actually influence your outcome in terms of the validity of your product.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And on the point about being your worst critic, I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody successful that is not their own worst critic. So I think that's an interesting point of view. What is your go-to feel-good food? So you're having a really bad day, you come home, what are you making or what are you ordering?
Okay, 3 pistachios.
Okay.
That's one thing. Thyme with olive oil. It's not like thyme. There's a specific Middle Eastern mix.
Okay.
With pepper jam. It's really good.
Okay.
Or my latest favorite that I never expected this could have ever happened are avocados.
Okay.
I never thought I would like avocados. I really like them now. It's just I ended up trying it again. I tried it once when like years ago. Didn't like it at all. Tried it again now. Tastes good.
Okay. Well,
But those are the 3 things.
You're allowed to live in the Vancouver area now then if you like avocados. Just a couple quick follow-up questions. Your dad was a physician in Syria. Is he a physician here or what does he do here?
No, he's not. It's a very difficult pathway for individuals who have graduated from med school outside of Canada to actually become physicians in Canada. It's so tough. And he wasn't just a physician, he was a pediatrician, so he was specialized. He has 20 years of experience. He was even he was the head of the training process that new graduates or graduates within the pediatric who are pediatricians. So they used to also follow his training in terms of like, okay, what needs to be done in this situation, and then he kind of observes that what they are doing, what type of decision they are making, if that's the right decision to do, and he kind of assesses their performance for fresh graduates they are already med school graduates, but they have graduated their specialization. So, and then now my dad faced a lot of difficulty in his life in Syria. He had very libertarian thoughts. He was detained for in Syria on Hafez Assad's regime before the current Assad, his father's. He was detained because he had libertarian thoughts for 4 years. He was detained in the Aleppo prison for 4 years. And of course, there's no court. You can't appeal such a case because it's not written in any law in Syria, and of course it's just barbaric dictatorship there. So yeah, he faced a lot of difficulty. He had to stop med school in second year because he got arrested. He was within the Communist Party in Syria. Of course, any activity outside the controlling party in Syria is considered illegal, not in the sense of laws, but in the sense of the regime. So he was arrested and then detained for 4 years, and then he got
that
released.
Was prior to you being born?
Sorry, what? Yes, prior to me being born.
Prior to you being born, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So and then he after he got released, he continued his med school
Okay.
for another 4 years, and then he finished his specialization. He started work. We, like my dad especially, he still got heat from the government because of what happened
Hmm.
up until like just before the war. Like we
Okay.
couldn't really buy a house in our village in Syria because it was close to the Turkish border. They called
Okay.
him in. What's the story? Can you tell us again about that story? What happened there? They keep
Mm,
pushing you. And my dad told him, look, this happened 40 years ago. I don't even remember the names. You have all the files. You have big file about all the people within the party, about all the activities that we have done. And yeah, and they keep everything. They don't forget. And
mm,
it's like here in Canada, you can say whatever you want, regardless of like you can think whatever you want. And
hmm.
so and then the war happened, and then we moved here to Canada, which was very fortunate.
Hmm.
And thank goodness, with a democratic system, you don't worry about what you're saying, at least.
Hmm.
So yeah, but right now my dad is working in a window factory.
A window factory?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Manufacturing windows,
Okay.
aluminum windows. He tells me, like, sometimes I just lose in my thoughts, thinking like what else of an outcome can be.
Hmm.
But those are his words. But I realize that I'm happy here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Are you or any of your family citizens at this point?
Yes, I am, and my dad are citizens. Actually, I became citizen last year.
Okay.
I got my
Congratulations.
passport.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Accelerated passport, so I can
Yeah.
travel to India.
Yeah. Okay. And your dad's a citizen, but not your mom?
Not yet. No,
Not yet.
she still didn't
She's
get
on
the
that path.
invitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 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 Awesome. Fascinating. I've had a great chat. Thank you so much, Souren. I appreciate your time. Yeah, as I
Thank you
said,
too.
I'll send you a recording after we're done here. And yeah,
Sounds good.
enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so
You
much.
too as well. Yeah,
All
let's
right.
catch up.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. All right.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Have a great day.